This lesson on building complex layouts will be one of the most difficult so far, but also one of the most important. Understanding the fundamentals of building any layout will mean that you're able to build any dashboard from a Figma design you're given, or any complex components, no matter how many elements they have inside them or how much complexity is in the design. So the best way to do this is to open Paint or to draw it out on paper if you don't need Paint. But what I have here is a screenshot of a design we'd like to build. We won't build the design in this lesson, but we will build the layout and then start kind of drawing out your layout next to it. The first thing you need to do is you need to understand that you're starting on the outside, moving in. So you're not going to start at the top and go down. You're not going to start building components, label, inputs, just go wild in that way. What you're going to do is you're going to start on the outside of the design and figure out how many containers you need. So obviously a container can only have one direction. So we need to decide which direction certain containers will be. So we'll draw out our first component, our first container, which will be the outside container over there. And we need to decide, is it vertical or horizontal? So we could do it as both, but there's always one way that's going to be the better way. And to figure that out, what you can do is you can just take a ruler or a book, or just take your kind of window and move it across from on one axis. I'm going to start vertically, and it kind of counts how many visual blocks there are. So we're starting with 0, then we've got our first one, which is the welcome back, second one, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This just counts as one because we're just going vertically now, and they're on the same level vertically. So that's 8, 9, and then I think it's quite obvious that if we did the same horizontally, we wouldn't get nearly as close to 9 as we did vertically. So our first component, our first container, which is this one, will be vertical. What we can do now is we can start adding elements. And we'll see that we will start adding them until we get an element that breaks the layout. So what we have is vertical elements. Welcome back. There's 1, 2, 3. Doesn't matter if you draw them out, how you draw it out. And we've got this one on that side. And then we have these two over there. As soon as you have something like this, that's multiple elements that are on a different axis as you currently are in. No, currently we are inside the vertical one, obviously. Then we'll add another container. And this one obviously will be horizontal. So then we can add our two components in this one. And here we have 2 again. So that'll be another block with our 2 components inside. You don't always have to draw it out like this, but when you're starting out, until you feel comfortable building these, it is the better way. So what we've done now is we've just drilled in. We are now able to start building this, what we have over here, if we have all these traits available. So if we have a trait for this kind of input, things like that, or if we do have to build these, you can go a level deeper now, or you can leave it for later. If you did go a level deeper, it's normally best to break them out. So instead of going, okay, well, this input over here has an icon. Just get the right color as an icon and an input. It's best to build these separately. So get the right abstractions when you're building your layouts. Don't try and do it all on one. So once you've built this part, do the same thing, but for an individual component. So you can save this one, and you go, okay, well, I've got this, which is going to be horizontal, and I've got a component there and a component there. So the same kind of thing you can apply to any kind of layout you build. It is a good idea to challenge yourself, and a nice exercise is to just start drawing layouts. Start with a box for your main container, then just start splitting it up in any way, maybe like this. And then what you can do is exactly the same. You decide firstly, is this going to be horizontal or vertical? And here I can see, well, horizontally, if I had to make a block like this anywhere, there's only one division because we don't have something like this, for example. If we did have this, maybe we could have gone, okay, well, there's one, and there's the other one. But because we don't have that, because we had something like this instead, I can't show you the exact design, now we know that this will have to be vertical because we have 1, 2 elements. So it starts out like this, which is your vertical one. And then we have to look at the various elements. So we start out in the top one because we're working in vertical, so we're going top down. We can see, well, okay, there's 1, 2. So to build the first one, let's make a container for it, because we can make a container for the second one as well. And we can see, okay, well, in this one, we can see that we're horizontal because there's only one element on this axis, really, one solid division. But if you look horizontally at this one, we can see there's 1, 2. So now we know this one will be horizontal. And inside this one, we have this one, and then a big block in which we'll have to do these two. This one will then be vertical because we need one on top, one at the bottom. Similarly for the bottom one, if we're looking at this box over there, we'll see that it is horizontal. So we've got one, then we add the second one, which is going to be this big one. And then in this one, we decide, are we horizontal or vertical? Again, this one is vertical because we can't do this anyway because it breaks over there. It's vertical because we have 1, 2, one on top, that's one at the bottom. And then now we see we need this area where we'll see that this one is now horizontal because for this area, we've got 1, 2, but just one. So like this, and we can add those two. Now, although this might look extremely complex, it's quite simple to convert this into a Opus layout. So let's do that now. So what we have is our single page on the outside, meaning we have this big one. Now we need to do the direction, obviously, which we said was vertical for the first one on the outside. Then we start adding the two components. It has, this outside one has 1, 2 components, 2 containers. We'll add 2 of them. The top one we see is horizontal. That's this one over there. The bottom one we see is also horizontal. Then inside the first one, now we're in this space, we can add 1, 2. This first one has nothing inside it right now, so we can ignore that one. The second one we see has things inside it, and it is vertical. If you need to, you can add comments or things to your components just to keep track of where you are. So you can actually add something like this, top box, and for this one you could write. Normally you'll have a bit more indication of what things are when you get designs. So maybe for this one you will write user info, and for this one you will write content section, whatever it may be. These comments that you add, even though we haven't discussed this, you can put any extra keys inside your components. Opus will just ignore it. So you can add a comment like this, or you can add multiple comments with an array of comments, anything you want really, just to make it easier for yourself and also anyone else coming after you to understand what's happening. So we have this user info one, which is the top one, with 1, 2, 1, 2. This one's vertical, and we can add the other 2 components inside it. This one and this one. And then for the bottom one, which is over there, we can see this one is horizontal, which we've added. And then the first one is there, and the second one we can see is vertical. Inside it, we have one on the top, which is this one, and one at the bottom. So we've got 1, 2. Oh, kind of lost one there. And the top one is horizontal. That's this one over there. And it has 2 elements inside it. Now, even though I've added containers for everything, it might be in your design that this thing over here is actually just an icon, or this thing is maybe an input, and whatever it may be. So instead of adding the containers, you could add those. But build starting with simple containers is a good way just to block it out. What you can do at this point in time is you can start adding colors to things and also making them all flex, which we'll discuss in the later lesson. Flex just means it'll use as much space as possible. So let's make the two outside ones flex. Let's start with red, blue, so that you can see your sections. Then you can drill into these and make them all flex as well to make sure that they are using space, because the containers are empty. They won't use space if they're empty. So making them flex just causes them to use all the space that's available to them anyway. And then you can start adding more colors. And this way you can see if what you've designed is actually what you wanted to build. So now we can see on top we've got those two yellow ones, which does correspond to this box and this box. And at the bottom we've got one at the moment. Do not worry at this point in time about sizes of things. Sure, here we can see this one's kind of 50-50 in terms of width, and here we have like 20-80% split. Building the initial layout does not care about that. We'll talk about flexing and sizing in a later lesson.